Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Shourav, as she just mentioned, and I head up the practice development team in Alcon, India. And I would like to thank Dr. Rohit Shetty, who's not here, to have and invite me for this particular session. Now, what I'm going to do today is, and this is a very rightly placed topic. In the past 2 days, there's been all clinical consumption. Now, the larger question is, how do you implement and put this into practice such that the procedure adoption takes place? You want me to come in front? All right. So what I've basically done today is collected and aggregated some of the best practice LASIK practice pearls from the surgeons. And so I'm going to top it up with some of the theories so that it becomes much more convincing for you to better implement in your practice. So let's get started. The first practice pearl comes from Dr. Kasturi Bhattacharya. For them, I'm sure she needs no introduction. She practices in Northeast, in Guwahati, and this is what she had to say.
I would like to say that I'm really happy with the system, especially in relation to the flap centration, the flap thickness, and the most important is that it minimizes the topographic variability of the flap, especially the flap thickness. And when I look back to the patient, I have been doing this procedure for the last 1.5 years, and when I look back to my patient, I've seen that none of the patient had any of the flap related complications and also the post-operative complication in terms of the epithelial ingrowth. And what I mean to say that my patients, if I look back to my patients regarding those last few years patients who had undergone the microkeratomy procedure, and with this group of patients who had undergone a femto-LASIK procedure with a contour profile, this group of patients are definitely much happier. And if you question me regarding the surgeon, I think it has given me the utmost satisfaction. Thank you very much.
And what we actually see in this particular conversation is not talking more about the technology, but the conviction that is happening. And that's the first mantra actually, is a self-conviction. Now this is the whole story. If you're convinced about the technology, everything that you speak, from your body language, the verbal, non-verbal, everything speaks up. And this is how it shows in the way you communicate with your patients. So the biggest mantra is, and the study also proves, if you align strategically your conviction along with the practice strategy, it really does wonders to your particular practice. Hence, seminars like this, symposiums like this are very important typically to clear your doubts such that you and everybody in your practice, especially, in couple of for experience, even the junior doctors, many times you have found that they are not convinced about the technology and they somehow do not promote as much as that. So it's very important to find out that curious cat inside the practice, talk to them, convince that this technology is well, and then the entire practice together, along with the staff, are convinced about this technology, and then automatically, a lot of wonders keep happening. The next pearl comes from Dr. Samresh Srivastav, and he was here yesterday, and he practices in Jaipur, as you all know, and this is what he had to say.
But I'd like to tell you that in our practice, almost about 90%, I would say about 80 to 90% of our LASIK practice is a femtosecond assisted LASIK. We do have a microkeratome, but it's being very, very sparingly used to the point that I have personally not used it in the last few months. And that's only because we are spending a lot of chair time with our patients when we counsel these patients. We don't leave the counseling, the scientific counseling part to the counselors, but it is us doctors who sit with the patients and explain them the benefits and the safety that a femtosecond laser provides consistently as compared to a microkeratome in our clinical practice. And I think that has helped a lot. Talking to the patient upfront about the pros and cons, the pros of having a femtosecond laser in your clinical practice. We initially thought that it's going to be really difficult, particularly in our newer centers in Jaipur, because trying to convince in a brand new practice to a patient about a LASIK platform which was not only expensive but not commonly available in the surrounding area I was wondering it's going to be a big challenge. But on the contrary, when I started talking to the patients upfront about what a femtosecond laser provides in terms of the convenience, comfort, but most important, safety, not only for the doctor but also for the patient, I think a lot of patients go back, do read about it, and come back and make a very, very planned, sensible decision to go ahead with the femtosecond platform.
So chair time is the key word, as you learned, and there's no replacement for a surgeon chair time, and that's very critical. Along with the chair time, what's really important, and that's what you heard Dr. Samresh talk about it, is also the importance of how well you recommend these particular procedures. Recommendation is very key. Recommendation, I've been talking about this. Recommendation is not about selling. Recommendation is just about telling that had I been in your position, I would have done the same thing for my daughter or son, and so on and so forth. A simple thing that you could probably use and we have designed is a recommendation pad, and you can design it for yourself, which is basically just a one small, like a check leaf kind of a thing, which should be done by yourself, and which talks about the different procedures, and you make a recommendation by a tick, saying that, Mr. Rao, based on the examination that we have, I think your cornea is healthy to receive a ... technology, and I recommend going for a femtolasic procedures, and so on and so forth. Now this letter, when it's pinned up in the case paper and the file, and it goes from the entire patient journey to various practitioners, various staff in the entire journey, this pick up this, and this conversation, and are able to convince them much more, not more superiorly, because they start the conversation saying, as recommended by Dr. So-and-so, I would really also say that and then it takes it forward. So this is something that you would want to consider doing it and strongly recommend to your patients as well. Some of the terms in order of chronology that you would want to use when you're making this recommendation or any conversation, this was based on a survey, this is in the order of chronology. Something that really impacts the patient out here in India for us, again, laser happens to have that SPA effect. Laser is something. SPA stands for sharp, precise, and accurate. Whenever you hear the word laser, this is what it resonates. Second is safety. Safety is something that really patients are bothered about. Then the technology that you talk about, customization, and then the fifth is the first in town, the first in so-and-so, so-and-so. This is something that you would want to, patients really get moved about this. Notice that only the sixth point was the bladeless LASIK point of it. It didn't figure out in the first five top terminologies most effective for patients. In the similar order, I think this is something that is, whenever a consumer journey happens, a patient journey happens, a patient journey takes place into 4 different stages. One is spark, is when you get the idea that, I really want to get this procedure done. Then it comes seek, where you're trying to look out for information. Then you shop. This is where you make that purchase decision. And finally, you share, and you have that wow effect, and you share. In the seek procedure, there's one important thing, which is the cold calls. And in India, 6 out of 10 purchase decisions for LASIK happens to be over cold calls, which is just putting an inquiry. What is the cost? The window shoppers kind of a thing. It's very utterly important that these calls are taken by for personnel who are really trained upon it, who is not just for answering the calls, but who are there to make this productive business conversations and making sure that the patients and the caregivers actually arrive to the hospital for an appointment. So good way to look at this and make a frequent check about this. You can probably do a mystery call, finding out how they're figuring it out in all these aspects. But something that you cannot afford to ignore is properly answering the cold calls that comes up to your practice.
My mantra for promoting
Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary needs an introduction. Some more volume, please. Here's what he had to say.
But before that, you have to be convinced in your technology, which I am. Now, once I am out to promote it and sensitize my local ecosystem. So I go to the digital platform, and that gives me options in which area I want to promote this. So you select your area as per your budget, so that the moment the person punches LASIK, it takes that person to your website, which is showing Contura Vision. That way you will increase the footfalls of your center. And once the patient comes to your center, comes in the second step, how are you prepared to receive the patient in your center? So you have to have displays, you have to have a board which shows this is the latest we are offering, Contura Vision. You have to have badges of your staff moving around with Contura Vision, so that people feel that yes, this is something new and happening, and the conversions become better.
We all know Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary and Dr. Rahil. They are been really famous for creative and aggressive digital marketing. But what he also said in this is the way the internal marketing is handled, and that's something which is important. I just want to share a quick statistics that we did based again on a survey done in India for 18 metro and mini-metro towns, wherein with patients, it said that 7 out of 10 patients in India in metro and mini are willing to pay 70,000 rupees for a refractive procedure. However, the irony is only 2 out of 10 patients are offered any premium procedures. So there's a huge gap over here, which we're not addressing. So just like Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary in I7 Hospital, we should be making sure that in the entire journey, somehow any new technology that comes in, it showed up. There's some way and format, for example, in industrial clay, that bladeless LASIK surgery is available, whether it is in badges or it is in posters. Anyway, it should show up so that even if the patient doesn't undergo a particular procedure, he or she is actually aware that this procedure exists in this particular practice. And there are several opportunities where you can do so in the entire practice, where you can, these are the points where we can probably make sure that this information and awareness actually is available in your practice. The next one, of course, I don't have a testimonial for this, is the first mover advantage. If you happen to be one of the first in any technologies in your practice, there was a Harvard study which said that, done on healthcare professionals, 672 professionals who adopted a newer technology and marketed them well, 70% of them were actually successful. So if you're in a town, whichever town you are, and if you have a first mover advantage, please market that. That sells really well and gives you a lot of advantage for your procedure of growth as well. Next is from Chaitanya Hospital, Dr. Sapna Nair. She couldn't make it, but
when I
here's a
talk about
message.
bladeless femtolasic treatment to the patient, I am offering a scientifically proven, internationally accepted product.
Genuine concern and sensitivity towards the patient, anxiety and fear is the key to building trust.
Once inside the OR, everything is entrusted to the surgeon. And as a surgeon, I operate knowing that I am backed by the best machine in this class. I can go to the thinnest possible flap for thin cornea and correct a wide range of powers with no limits placed on astigmatism or hypermetropias. The femtosecond flap creation with the FS200 happens in a couple of seconds, and after the excimer, the patient is out in less than 15 minutes.
When I first came here, I was so nervous, and now after femtosecond LASIK, it's like I see so much clearly.
So apart from a lot of things that Chaitanya Hospital and Dr. Sapna Nair, they invest a lot in staff training and staff education. And that's one of their key mantras over here. So that's something, periodic, what really happens, and I understand the agony of most of your practice, all the practitioners, that you train a staff and they tend to leave, and you are again back in the same position. It's very important not only to periodically do these refresher training programs, but also motivate them so that you're able to retain them for longer. They are real big assets for the entire practice, and this is something that you should not leave upon. Again, statistics, if incentives works well in your school of thoughts, I think this is really critical, especially in refractive practice, that you can probably look upon, and several incentive models are actually available today, wherein whatever is appropriate can be actually plugged in, and you can take that forward to motivate your practice. Next is Dr. Himanshu Mehta.
We need to give it to them in form of testimonials. We need to tell our patients to look at our past history and let the patient speak for ourselves. Because actually, what really works like magic, most patients who want to undergo surgery from you, is a word of mouth from the past operated patients. This is a very important platform, which is what is missed out quite often in our hurry and in our quick possessiveness of finishing the OPD. Do take care of your past patients. Make them your spellbinding professionals who are marking your excellence in publicizing what results you can give them.
So Dr. Himanshu Mehta from Mumbai, one of his biggest mantra is he does a lot of patient testimonials, and he does it really quick, as in just picking out the mobile and capturing that moment, and we all know that the wow factor for the LASIK refractive procedure is much more higher. Again, results prove that the organic growth of a practice largely depends on word of mouth publicity and the testimonials that happens through a patient especially. So something that you should be doing is appointing a person to take these testimonials, and they become a big asset for us, for your websites, for your in-clinic loop videos, and so on. And it's very simple to do so. You just capture the raw moment. They don't have to be a speaker material. The expression itself is enough. The last tip is from Dr. Nitin Balkrishnan.
For quite a few years now. Since the time we acquired it, initially there was a lot of resistance amongst patients to opt in basically from only one point of view, there is a cost. But over the years, having seen how our counselors do a very good job about explaining what are the advantages of femtolasic. Basically, the advantages the less amount of complications, the more predictability, the more standardized flaps. And once you explain these things, in the end it is the eye of the patient. And the patient doesn't want to take a chance. You don't want to put a price on quality. So once this is being conveyed to the patient, it's very easy to convert the patients into a bladeless LASIK or a femto LASIK.
So Dr. Nitin Balakrishna's practice is a busy practice, just like any Mumbai practice would happen, and it depends a lot on patient counselors and the chair time. So the job of a patient counselor is just not typically talking about the packages A, B, C, D. Is trying to talk about meaningful conversation, as Dr. Nitin Balakrishnan just mentioned, talking about the actual merit, talking about actually how things will become much more different for the patient, and that is the whole mantra. And there are several tools that are available so that this conversation becomes much more interesting for the patient and the caregiver. I think lastly, how do you price your procedures? I think being sensitive towards the ecosystem that you are in, never be apologetic in charging the appropriate fees. Instead, concentrate on adding a value. The patient will come back to you not only because of the outcomes, but will come to you because of the entire journey, from the check-in to the check-out, the experience that he or she has had. That's the reason he tries to come back to your practice, and all the value additions like this actually add up to this entire conversation. So any practice, any patient who is walking out, don't miss an opportunity to create him or her as a brand ambassador, so that he goes out sharing what goodness has happened to him. And this will not only give you a good name, but also will help you build up your revenue, so that you're able to invest in more technologies, newer technologies in the days to come. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Shourav.